Welcome back to the piano crash course. In today's lesson, we'll be going through 7 chords, which are a much more difficult variation of the chords we've been playing so far. Even though they are more difficult, they form a more complete sound because of the scales, but we'll get more to that later.
7 chords are going to be a little more difficult than all of the chords we've done before, because the 7 chords add an extra finger. So far we've been playing chords with 3 fingers, for example C, G, C, E, 3 fingers. But to play the C7 chord, we're playing C, E, G, and A sharp. Now at first, your finger will struggle a little with holding 4 chords at once, but after around a week of practice, constant pressing the chords, don't worry, your hands will be fine with it. Now, the 2 chords that I'll be teaching you today are G7 and D7, but before we get to that, let's learn a little more about 7 chords first. So let's look at C. C is C, E, and G. It's a triad. Now, a 7 chord is basically just adding one more note from the C scale to make a much more fuller sound. By adding this extra note, it gives some dissonance to it, but more importantly, it gives a fuller sound to the chord. C7 embodies the C scale more than the C chord does. So the C7 is basically the 7th chord in the C scale added to the triad, which is C, E, G. So we're adding A sharp, giving us C7. Now, I'm not teaching you C7 yet because the position's a little difficult and it's not that common when you find it in notes. So let's look at G7 first. G7 is by far the most common 7 chord that you'll find when you're playing pieces. Now let's play G, B, and D. The 7 chord for G is relatively simple. We just add your pinky to the chord beside G, F. This is G7. You're adding an extra finger, so 4 fingers, and that becomes a 7 chord. Of course, as usual, all chords can be played in different variations, so instead of playing the F here, if that's uncomfortable, you can always play the F here. As long as it has the fundamental notes G, B, D, and F, then you're playing G7. Now let's look at D7. As usual, we have the main triad, D, F sharp, and A. But what we're doing now is we're going to add an extra note, which is C. So it's still D, F sharp, A, but with another C. And again, you can play it with different variations. These are all D7s, but they are played in a different variation. Even though I'm only teaching you D7, you can also learn E7 while you're at it if you're interested. E7 is just like D chord, where you move a step up to E, you move a step up to E7 exactly the same way. So you're playing D7 here, you're just gonna move one step up, and now you're playing E7, consisting of E, G sharp, B, and D. But for now, we're only focusing on G7 and D7. Remember to practice these chords a lot, because adding the extra 4th finger gives a lot of stress to your hand. So remember to get a lot of repetitions in D7 and G7. These different finger positions will allow your hand to become more versatile and play more difficult chord positions in the future.
So what have we learned today? We've learned about the chords C7 and G7. We've also learned how to play E7 if you're interested in learning that. We've learned about how 7 chords work and the fundamental idea behind them. I've also taught you how to practice 7 chords in case they have a string on an extra finger. I hope you enjoyed practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.